This is like a real life treasure hunt, man. This is fun. I like this. All right, guys, I do not know what I'm getting into, and I do not know how much information I can tell you. All I can tell you is I'm on the East Coast. We're gonna go look at some gold mines. I don't know how many videos I'm gonna make on this trip. I don't know what I'm gonna see. Can't open my car. Open car. So let's go check out some of the oldest gold mines in the country. Today I'm going to be hanging out with my friend Dale from Tamarack Geology. He's working on some gold mining drilling projects out here. He's going to show me the ropes, show me what they're finding, and hopefully we can see some gold today and talk about some future gold mines here on the East Coast. And y'all got some East Coast drivers out here. It's a little more aggressive out here than up in Washington State. Very, very different. Calm down. All right, I just made it to site. Checked in with Dale. I found out that I can tell you guys the name of the mine. I'm at the Silver Hill mine here in North Carolina today. We're gonna see a lot of cool stuff. I'm hoping to see some drilling, some core logging. We're gonna talk about metals. We're gonna talk about what they're finding here, maybe some assay results if we're lucky. But let's go check in with Dale and maybe we can get a little bit of a plan on what we're gonna see today. Oh man, they have got a bunch of stuff going on. They are developing, they're getting land cleared for some drill pads. They're getting ready to log a bunch more core. They're doing a whole bunch more holes. Dale, my man. Hey, buddy.
It's been a minute, dude.
Yeah, no kidding.
I think November last time we were drinking beers in Bellingham. So you come all the way across the country to see what we're doing over here.
Yeah, you've got a going concern out here.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
What are we gonna see today? Like, what's the plan over the next day or two?
Man, you're here right when things are pretty exciting. We're drilling in an area that's very interesting for us, and we're kind of in the zone right now where we expect to see some mineralization.
Okay.
So that'll be cool. We're gonna table some drill core that's from the same area we're drilling now. We're gonna look at that. We've got some interesting stuff I think you're gonna like to see.
Cool.
We're gonna be plotting up holes to make sure that we know where they are in real space. We're gonna go look at the whole operation at Silver Hill. Probably talk a little bit about what's going on over here, and maybe do some other stuff. You know, looking at assays potentially. We'll see what happens.
This is a historically producing site. So there's been old gold mines here in the past, but in the last, what, 10 years, you guys have really identified some targets. And now with the metal prices being up the way they are, plan is in the next couple of years to develop a new mine.
Potentially. So essentially what's been going on is my client, Tom Kleberg, he has been working in North Carolina forever. He's like kind of the rock star, geologist, landman, just all around stud. He and I got together about 3 years ago and started working on getting this set up and ready to do this thing we're doing right now. Multiple other companies have worked this project in the past. And so we have some historic data to go from. Silver Hill was the first silver mine in the U.S. They discovered it in 1838. But right now we're kind of applying some modern exploration techniques like geophysics. Obviously we're drilling it with core, which in the past around here people typically RC drilled. So we're getting a lot more detailed data.
RC drill is
reverse circulation. So that's a way to drill very cheap, but with low detail, because you can only sample every 5 feet.
And so the chips come up.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you're not getting a core hole.
Yeah. Yeah. So you just get chips, and with the core, we get to see all the details.
Yeah. By the foot.
Exactly. Yeah. And really isolate where we think the grade is.
Yeah.
To just like maximize our understanding of what's going on, and also ideally maximize the grade, because we can of an intercept.
Sure.
Because we can really fine tune how we sample it. These mountains are very old, right?
Sure, sure.
So we have a lot of complex deformation here. So like faults, we've got like kind of regional cleavage. It's maybe remobilizing minerals around and all kinds of fun stuff like that. But that's all also good for moving gold around.
Yeah, right. Concentrating. And yeah,
exactly.
That diffuse gold all throughout the rocks, concentrating into these veins that you see at my mine and some of these other high grade mines. So there's a lot going on here. It's really complex. It's in an area that's geologically not active anymore, but in the past was like super getting cranked on and getting all screwed up.
It's really analogous to the West. right? All of our different accreted terrains coming in and like lots of deformation. It's just so old that now it's all eroded away and flat.
Yeah, exactly.
With the exception of like, you know, kind of the core of the Appalachians.
The East Coast is what the West Coast is going to look like in 200 million years.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Everybody would be like, where's the outcrop?
Yeah.
Well, it's under like 20 feet of soil. So that's what makes it interesting out here in terms of like trying to explore. Because we got to use some, you know, different techniques than your typical guys out prospecting, banging on outcrop would do. We're using geophysics and we're using geochemistry. And then also, you know, we have some understanding of where these things are from the past. But in general, we have silver, lead, zinc, copper, and gold.
Nice.
And lots of other stuff, but those are the ones we care about.
Those are the big ones. Yeah.
So that'll be cool. So we're gonna do all that. We're gonna go talk to Tom. We're gonna go look at Silver Hill. We're gonna do some stuff in here. We're gonna kick some rocks around and see what we see, look at the drill, all the stuff.
Let's get started, and I'm excited to see what you got.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be a fun couple days.
All right, Dale's gonna show us a little bit of the 3D mapping he's been doing and show us kind of an overview, general overview about what he's getting and how this whole thing works, why he's drilling, where he's drilling, and what he's looking at.
All right, so we're in a situation right now where we need to know where the drill hole is in space, so that way we can make a good decision on when to stop it. We call that a TD, total depth. What you're looking at right now is just like a plan view, which is looking down on surface where north is up. We have our mine area here. So I'm just gonna turn that off. What you're looking at in gray here, it's an estimation of where the historic mine workings are. The people that came before us came down here and they worked all this area, and then they came down here and they did some bulk sampling between the 1,000 level and the 1,400 level. And all these little gray or these black lines that you're seeing are drill holes that we've drilled. And so right now, we're drilling this hole right here. The thing that's important about this is that we're exploring off to the south from where they historically, worked the ore body. And that's represented by all these red dots, which is essentially a representation of the grade at that area. So the bigger and redder the dot, the higher the grade. So the more silver, more lead, more zinc, etc. And what you're looking at here in blue is essentially all of our assays that are pending. And so I want to make sure that I'm through the projection of this trend. So the ore deposits in general dipping about 45 degrees to the west. And so I just came through and figured out how deep I need to drill to make sure I'm all the way through the projection and make a good decision on when we're going to stop this hole, which is what we're going to go do later today.
You're taking the assays where the blue is.
Yes.
You're taking them, what, every 5 feet or 2 feet or?
Quite a bit more detail than that. Visually, we can see a lot of the sulfides that we're interested in, right? Like zinc, here comes in sphalerite. And for us, it's like kind of honey colored all the way up to like red. Lead is obviously, we get that in galena, and so we know what galena looks like, typically kind of silvery, kind of bluish looking. The silver comes with the lead.
Yep, okay.
In the galena, and the gold appears to be related to the zinc.
Interesting.
We don't really know yet, but like spatially, they're kind of in the same place.
Okay.
Yeah, so that makes it easy for us, because when we see the sphalerite and galena, we know we need to sample it, obviously.
Yeah.
And then there's more to the story, right? Like as we keep drilling, we keep learning, hey, we got some gold in these other rocks that maybe have a lot of pyrite in them, and they're silicified with a lot of quartz, right?
Sure.
And so like around here, very fine grained pyrite is prospective for gold.
Okay.
And so that's one of the things we look for too.
You're not going blind anymore. You have enough information kind of around that now you can kind of dial in each hole. And like you talked about, you don't have to drill 2,000 feet.
Yeah.
You're drilling, okay, my ore body is going to be from 450 to 500 feet, and I don't need to go to 800. I can stop at 6 or 7 or whatever.
As things are going well, we have changed the plan from drilling 4
yeah,
to now we're drilling our 13th, and we're going to probably keep on drilling.
Keep going.
Yeah. Because right now we're just focused on this area.
Kind of this.
Yeah. Because there's some low-hanging fruit here that we could, with success probably estimate a resource before too long. But this way, we have a lot of interesting geophysical data that suggests we should look around over there, and also this way. this is kind of the trend of the zone that we're interested in.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
north is up and down, and this is here. And so west is this way. So we're essentially dipping towards the west.
Okay.
Yeah. So down here, or up here to the north and down to the south, we've got a lot of extra data that we're collecting to essentially verify where we want to drill.
So right now you have a verified project just in what you have.
Yeah.
And you could expand that by a huge multiplier to the north and the south.
That's the goal.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the goal. So this is low hanging fruit, but also what we're doing is expanding it quite significantly. This whole area here that we're working to the south is new and expanding.
Cool.
And then we also have some results up here that are pretty interesting as well. The name of the game here is to find multiple silver hills on the trend.
And so this is really the very early stages of an exploration project, right? They've identified some targets, they're drilling them, they're hitting the targets, now they're looking to expand to the north and south. I'm gonna try and twist Dale's arm a little bit and get him to talk about some of the past mining, some of the historical stuff, and then maybe how they're gonna mine this in the future. That's years away, that could be years away. And depending on what they find here to the north and south, this could be decades long project. So this is really potentially a big deal for this area, for North Carolina, and just for the mining industry in general around on the East Coast. So they're bringing up their pallets of core. They got do a little road built over their core logging shed. This is a big deal, man. They're doing a lot of stuff out here. This is like turning into a real exploration project. It's cool to see. This is really neat.
Log the details.
Okay.
Box one here.
Ooh.
That's soil.
Yeah.
Then we get into bedrock.
Wow, it pulls a pretty good core even in the soil.
Yeah. Yeah, the soil here is very clayey, so it holds together pretty good, and the drillers we have are
They're good.
Yeah. They're good at everything.
And these are depths in feet, 12,
Yes.
17, 27.
Exactly. These are called run blocks. So this is our reference point down the hole. So I know that's 12 feet. I know that's 17. That's how we measure out the contacts.
Cool.
We're essentially in this basin where there's a lot of volcanics. For example, in here we have sedimentary rocks interbedded with volcanic rocks.
Nice.
Yeah. And so here we've got more volcanic rocks. Here we've got more sedimentary rocks, and they're mixed a lot, and they're so the rocks are kind of layered, and they're mixed volcanics and essentially mudstones, or what we call argillites.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of silts in there, but that's like kind of generally the rock types. And then also what's cool is we think we have like turbidite deposits too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that word in a long time.
But the mineralization's like related to this kind of specific type of volcanic rock with kind of a certain amount of argillite.
Okay.
It's kind of what we're discovering.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I'll let you get the rest of these boxes unloaded. This all happened underwater where, like Dale was saying, you get this extension where the seafloor is spreading. You're getting all these normal faults. You're getting all this hot fluid coming up, bringing these metals, and you get these layers of the black smokers, if you will, is kind of a general term. They're bringing up this fluid. It's getting into the seawater, and then it's settling down onto the seafloor, and then you get maybe some mud deposit, and then maybe a little more volcanic activity, and you get these layers upon layers upon layers of deposition. To expand on what he said earlier about turbidites, that can be like, think of like an underwater landslide where you get this sediment coming off this maybe continental shelf, or a big flood out of one of the regional rivers, and it's spewing all this stuff kind of down across the whole area. And so you just get this layer upon layer upon layer. And what Dale was saying is there's a band in there somewhere, some point in time. So one of these layers is a point in time where you maybe had a bunch of metals come up all at once, or there was this huge influx of deposition, and you get these really rich bands, and that's what they're focusing on right now. We've unloaded a couple boxes of core. Dale's gonna walk us through kind of like the general process of logging core, how you do it, why you do it, and then we got one more pallet coming that's in the mineralized zone. So that's the exciting rocks. But let's get a tutorial on kind of what we're looking for, how this whole thing works.
What we're gonna do right now is we're gonna come through and look at the rocks and the hole that's nearby the one we're currently drilling.
So this is the next door neighbor.
This is the next door neighbor. First of all, there's the rocks, right? Like we need to know what the rocks are. Then, you know, ideally you have mineralization everywhere, right? But when you don't have mineralization everywhere, the next most important thing is alteration.
Right.
So what's alteration? Alteration is when our hydrothermal fluids are interacting with the rocks and changing the minerals. They're either changing it from one thing to another, or they're adding different kinds of minerals in here. And so one of the things that we found is relates to our ore body very closely is carbonate alteration. So this is kind of white.
And this was like a crack in the rock where some heat or fluid came up and altered this zone out here in the host rock. Is that what you're
There's a
telling me?
combination. There's a combination. So we have like bedded kind of carbonates that are closely related to the ore deposit.
Okay.
And then we have remobilized carbonates
These, yeah,
through
okay.
all these different veins.
These little tiny veinlets and stuff. Right. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So if you picture like your seafloor, you've got your metals like barfing out onto the seafloor, and part of that process is like precipitating out some carbonate minerals.
Yeah.
So that's there.
Yeah.
And then all of it gets squished, and then everything starts moving around, and so
Yeah.
that's when you get all this quartz carbonate veining kind of filling in the different breaks of the rocks when it was all getting squished.
As the mountain building occurred.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Aside from the carbonate is we have some silicification. So this is like, if we get a scratcher, we'll be able to see that this is like very hard, like difficult to scratch, almost like glass. And so essentially what happens here is you have a lot of fluids kind of moving through this rock, and silica in particular, like making it very strong, very hard.
Like cementing it with
Yeah,
silica.
and like, you know, silica, and gold, and pyrite, like all that stuff's related. So these things are interesting for these units in particular, are interesting for us for gold.
Gotcha.
Even though you can't see it, we have that alteration that tells us maybe it's there. Then we're kind of cruising down.
And this is going down depth, so we're at 387, almost 400, 407. So we're going down into the earth.
Yes.
You're getting a lot more silicification going on here for 20, 30 feet.
Yep, and a lot of, you know, our pyrite kind of turns things pretty dark. So like when it gets dark gray like this, there's a lot of very fine grained pyrite in that.
Okay.
So that's very interesting for us for gold prospectivity. Talking earlier, we were like, well, how do we know what's up? Well, we can easily see the sulfides, like the zinc and the lead sulfides.
Right.
We know what that looks like. We're learning what carries the gold, and it's pyrite silica. So like we're using the whole picture to kind of understand what we want to sample and how we want to sample it. And that's a process, but we're, you know, starting to get results back to where we can kind of understand what's going to have gold in it, whereas before we might not have known. We're going to get the next pallet here and lay out the actual intercept so we can see the whole transition from kind of boring rocks into altered rocks into our min zone.
Are you guys loving this? I'm loving this. This is so much fun. Leave me a comment down below if you like this stuff, if you want to see more of this stuff. Dale and I are totally nerding out over this stuff, so I'm happy to share it with you, but I want to make sure you guys are liking it as well. So question for the log and core. We started at our collar at 0.
Yeah.
We went down 700 feet, whatever the bottom of the hole is going to be. That's our last pallet. Are you going to go through each one of these boxes and say between 267, boop, this is all good, and then bam, here at 277 we hit a different rock type? Are you gonna? That's what log and core is, right?
Yeah. First thing we do is we go through and identify all the rocks. The next thing we do is we go through and identify all the different alteration we're seeing. The next thing we do is we go through and identify all the different faults we're seeing. Then we go through and figure out which way the bedding may be telling us is up, right? Because like we're drilling, we think, in this fold, and so we want to understand which way is up.
Which, side note, may not always be up. It may be upside down.
Especially out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, things are crazy. So we can go through and I can give you like some preliminary kind of flagging. What I do is I put a little zip tie in for like where I see an initial break in the rocks.
Yeah.
A change in the rocks.
Let's do it, yeah. It's a lot of rock.
We got a lot of rocks. Yeah, I mean the hole we're drilling right now is probably gonna be 700 feet. We can lay out about that much.
One hole in the
One
whole
hole
shed.
at a time. And that actually is really nice because like I can really efficiently log the core if I can see it all at one time. We're in the stage of a major ramp up. And so this is an improvisation.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, we have a shop available that has tables in it. Let's use it.
Put core in there. Yeah. Is there a rule of thumb for dollars per foot? Like how much does a 700-foot hole cost?
Around here, $40 to $60 a foot.
Okay.
Out west, depending on what you're doing, you know, $60 to $200 a foot.
Wow.
So like if you're drilling a really difficult project on surface, you know, where there's a lot of logistics, probably closer to $200 a foot. If you're drilling underground, or you've been drilling underground for years and you have the whole process figured out, probably closer to $50 a foot.
You've got hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of holes already.
We got 13 holes, plenty of footage. You know, they vary from, you know, 300 and some change feet to 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got quite an investment in this so far.
But you're finding the goodies.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Yeah, we'll be able to see the goodies here soon when
this next pallet comes in.
When our Rockstar Geotech brings the rest of the equipment. It takes a while to do all this, right? This is the first phase. And so kind of the general rule of thumb is like, it probably takes somewhere like between 4 and 5 years to get this to the point where you can make a decision like, hey, I want to mine it. But early days, first kind of pass at it, we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
So that's why we've expanded the scope from 4 holes to 13.
Yeah.
Plus, we're not going to stop.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason for us to stop.
So you're hitting good stuff in every hole, right?
Just about every hole.
Almost every hole.
But we're doing well. And we haven't even taken into account all the other data we're collecting.
Right.
To the north and south.
Right.
The geophysical data, the geochemical data. So that's going to be kind of a second phase with the goal of finding one or multiple others of this type of deposit. You know, obviously we've got soil on top.
Yeah.
You know, mining geologists don't really care about soil. Sometimes it's interesting here. Sometimes it can have some mineralization in it. So I'll look at that close later. But usually you can tell if it has mineralization if it's like really vuggy. If there's a lot of manganese, which is like this kind of dark stuff, right? If you have like a lot of crazy like orange colors that are like limonitic, right? And those are all like oxidized minerals. So like an oxidized version of like galena, sphalerite. For example, here I'll probably do something like, I'll find where the soil contact is. It's probably somewhere in here. And this is just like very preliminary, right? Like it's kind of my first pass.
Yeah.
And then I come through and I say, all right, what do we got going on? We got mixed volcanics and sedimentary rocks. And then you can see here, we go into like more dominantly volcanic, right? And so like this would be another place where I would say, hey, I got to change. Let's put a little marker.
Nice.
Yeah. And then we change back, right? Here.
And so we've gone down. Is this down?
That's down.
So you go down the hole. There's this little band of these clasts and some pyrites in there we're seeing, and then boop, changes back to this kind of smoother, more, what is that, just like marbly.
That's like probably a tufaceous argillite.
Okay.
And then we've got these like kind of rhyolitic tufts around. Some of them have a lot of like clasts in them, or lithics.
Yeah.
Some of them are just like big crystals and stuff like that. So we've got kind of a wide variety of tufts out here, but for the most part they're like rhyolitic in composition, which means there's a lot of quartz.
Right.
Not a lot of plage.
Right.
Here's another big change, right? Like we go from all this stuff that's happening here, which I'll log that in more detail, to like back into our sedimentary package. So you can see in here we've kind of changed from this looking rock into this kind of looking rock, right? That looks like a sedimentary rock for the most part.
Yep.
Right? And so it's like dominantly sedimentary. So that's going to be a thing I'm going to come back and look at.
And then a whole lot of that.
We got a whole lot of that. You know, and then it comes in here and we've got this kind of interesting looking zone. Right? There's some there's what looks like probably a lot of deformation to me. It looks similar. It looks kind of similar to this stuff, but there's all of a sudden some greens in here. There's some quartz veining. There's probably anchorite in that quartz veining. So there's something happening here. So this for me is going to be another place where I put essentially a little flag at where the change happens. And that'll remind me to come back and look at it close.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we kind of come out of that zone and we come into kind of back into this more kind of boring sedimentary rock, right? So we're gonna do that. And then we're zooming down and all of a sudden looks like we have some structure, or like a fault here, right? It's possible. One of the things I tell my folks is that we need to see like kinematic indicators, which are evidence for movement, in order to like actually call it a fault. Okay. There's joints, there's flexural slip, which is like when you have a fold happening, you can have movement along the bedding. So there's all kinds of ways you can break the rocks, but like our loggers need to justify calling it a fault by there being a reason. There needs to be slick insides, there needs to be chatters, there needs to be maybe gouge, something like that.
You can't just have broken rock and say, hey, there's a fault there.
Yeah, because then it gets noisy. Yeah. And you're like, dude, where are the faults at?
Yeah.
Like if you got people just logging broken rock as faults, like you can't really tell.
We're doing high level here. This is a quick and dirty.
Yeah, so then essentially we're coming back into our mixed volcanics and sed rocks. Bada bing.
And right here we're at 136 feet.
Yep.
And we're still hundreds of feet away from the zone.
Yeah, the zone here is somewhere around 470, I think.
Yeah, okay.
So we're a little ways away. So we're just kind of like looking at the top of the hole. It's interesting.
And so when you log a core, you're logging the whole core. All of it. Yeah. It's not like I'm waiting until 300 feet where it's interesting.
Yeah.
You get the whole thing.
You gotta do the whole thing.
The whole thing.
So, back into this kind of widespread sedimentary package. And then you can see we have like a subtle kind of green kind of coming in, right? So we're kind of coming into some volcanics. We're seeing this kind of greenish color, lots of like white veining around.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Well, there's
more
our
quartz.
chlorite and our carbonate alteration kind of coming into the game. And so if you look at a lot of these things, you can see little bits of whites in there. That's more than likely anchorite.
Okay.
So that's a variety of calcite. And so like we can tell the difference because calcite will fizz when you put acid on it, and anchorite you got to scratch it a little bit, and it's got a little bit different color, all that kind of stuff.
Powdered a little bit, more surface.
Yeah,
area.
exactly. And so here.
Oh yeah, now we're in the greener stuff.
Yeah,
a lot more green.
It's taken a little while for us to find. It's got like kind of an epidote color, right? And so like the people who were here before us, talked about a lot of epidote. We think this is epidote. It's very fine grain though. So like just recently we've found crystals that we can like positively ID as epidote.
My understanding is like 250 million years ago, Europe and Africa were like slammed over into the eastern United States, and you had like a Tibet situation where you get these two continents slamming together, and you can have these beds go all crazy all sorts of ways all on top of each other and underneath.
And just if you look at the Cascades, just how much deformation you have like right around your mine.
Sure.
It's a similar scenario out here. So that's like going to take something that was sitting like this and make it do this and maybe make it do this, right? So like it could be that we're working in this part of the area.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So the structural geology here is pretty complex, but that's kind of like a little bit of a side project, right? Like the priority right now is like find the mineralization.
Yeah.
Part of that picture is like understanding which way is up and what the fold looks like and all that kind of stuff. Especially as we like move away from the mine, that becomes pretty important. But it's something that we pay attention to when we're logging core.
Yeah.
Just trying to understand how all this stuff is sitting in space.
We got super sidetracked on the bedding.
We
got turned upside down, and then I just went on a little rabbit hole there. But yeah, let's get back to this core we're talking about. So here's another question for you. How do you decide when to throw an assay in the mix? Like you're not seeing anything in here that's worth assaying.
Well, we've been getting results back that help inform my decision. So first few holes, no idea. Just like visually, hey, I think I see some limonite in here.
Yeah, there's something shiny in this section.
Something shiny, we're interested in it. So like you sample pretty heavy early days, right? So that way you can get some data and understand what runs. Well, one of the things that we've learned is that this stuff in particular, these volcanic clastics that are mixed with argillite, when they have a lot of pyrite in them, they can also have gold. So like we are learning that along the way. So you would look at this and be like, yeah, I don't care about that. It's just some random like volcanic clastic rock. Well, like we're learning that there's more to the story.
Yeah,
so
interesting.
Like I'll probably be sampling this.
Cool.
Just to see if there's any gold there. And then ultimately, as we gather all this data, and we will learn what specific environment we need to have for this type of rock to have gold in it. Does it need to be close to a quartz vein?
Gotcha.
Does it need to be close to a massive sulfide body?
Yeah.
If it's way out in the middle of nowhere, is it just going to be dead? Probably. Got to have fluids, right, to like move the gold around.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of all the stuff we're learning as we get assays back, samples from the lab.
And that's why it's so important to build out the whole core hole.
Yeah.
You're looking for indicators above, below. You're looking for stuff maybe 300 feet away that's telling you, hey.
Yeah. There's a lot of information that's like kind of that we have right now that we're organizing to like create a picture of like what rocks have value, which ones don't.
Yeah.
And like where do we need to go to find more.
Yeah.
So that's like essentially what we do out here.
And so another interesting little side note here is a lot of people think, you know, geologists come out to a site, we've got it all figured out, we put out some drill holes, we know right where the gold is, whatever. Every mine site I've ever been to has been a learning experience for everybody. You're setting up, you have an idea, right? You have a hypothesis. You put a hole down, you pull some core up, you learn a lot about the rocks, that first hole. Then you make another hypothesis, or you change your hypothesis. Then you would say, okay, I'm gonna go look over here, do some more holes. Just like Dale said, they started with 4. Started with 4 holes, see what they got. He's learning stuff along the way. The first couple of holes, they didn't get a whole lot of, or they were assaying everything. They didn't know what they were looking for. And as you get more holes and more data, you can really build out a model. So as geologists, we're out here trying to put the pieces together. We don't come to the site with the questions answered already. Here's a section we've identified as a possible carbonate vein. So you got some HCl.
Yeah. So we got some HCl here. This looks like quartz to me, but you see how it gets whiter? Mm-hmm. You can see it's fizzing really hard.
Fizzing up good.
Yep. Whereas this stuff doesn't.
Yep.
Some of it will.
A little tiny veinlets.
Yeah, and that's kind of how you tell that we've got combination. And then, you know, here's more of it. And then these guys.
And this is a 2 to 4 foot zone here of a little vein intercept, but you're not seeing any love in this.
Not really. You see that? That's possibly some sphalerite. Yeah, it looks more like pyrite to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But nothing exciting there. But hey, look at this. Here's the rest of our hole. Or more of our hole.
Yep.
Awesome. Let's get this laid out. We'll take a look. This is like a real life treasure hunt, man. This is fun. I like this. All right, we got our next set of boxes laid out. We're in the min zone. Let's take a look at these rocks. Show you what some of this ore looks like.
All right, so we got our min zone back from the mine. We got it laid out, and you know we talked about these kind of silicified volcanics. We're coming kind of back into these kind of argillites and volcanics. Got kind of a wide variety, right? And then here, as the rocks become, you know, kind of more gray, that's for the most part where our lead is, or our galena. Mm-hmm. So you can see here we've got a bit of a mix. We've got sphalerite, which is kind of the tan colored stuff, and then we've got galena in there. And then the black is just the host rock that's, you know, got a lot of pyrite in it. And then if you kind of come down this way, you can see that we have this like kind of gradation out of the galena or lead and kind of into more dominantly sphalerite rich.
Yeah, wild. So these bluish silver streaks are all like galena rich streaks.
Yeah, yeah.
And then as soon as it transitions into the tanner color, that's your sphalerite.
Yeah. And then we go, these rocks are very interesting for us for gold.
The black.
Yes, the black with the sphalerite. So that's an emerging trend that we're pretty interested in. And then you can see we've kind of come through this. It's really like a pretty heavily carbonated altered argillite.
Yeah.
In here it's very soft and it fizzes really hard. We're in this kind of interesting zone, and then we go bang, massive sulfides.
Bam, and it's just
like
it's very abrupt. Like there's a little bit of mineralization in here, but then like right there, it's bam, solid.
Yeah, and you can see the contact kind of right there.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, and then if you look at it on that end, you can just see that it's solid.
It's
solid
just
metal.
It's just solid metal.
Yeah. And then we've got, obviously a good bit of it here, which is what we're looking for.
Wow, wild.
Yeah. So this stuff, I don't want to speculate what it's going to run in terms of an assay, but visually we know that this is really exciting for us.
Yeah.
This is what we're looking for.
This is the stuff. This massive sulfide stuff. And so you have, this is running lead, zinc, gold, silver, and copper. Copper. Okay.
Yeah. So obviously zinc dominates. Lead is next most. There's a good bit of silver in there. A little bit of gold. A little bit of copper.
Okay.
Yeah.
And all 5 of those metals would be your recovered metals. You'd be going after all of those.
That's like what we want to concentrate.
Yeah.
And send to the smelter.
Yep. Now, do you even need to concentrate it? Just send that to the smelter.
I know, right?
Like what?
Give that to Jason.
Yeah, just mine that.
Let you down a nice little bead. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. The other thing that's cool about this is that we have a wide zone of mineralization, right? Like you've seen it over there. Well, it continues.
Where? Yeah, hold on. Let me go back. So we're getting into it like kind of like right around the 450 mark, 460 somewhere.
Yeah. So each of these are 2 feet. So like there's 454.4. So let's call it 454.
And then we're going down, 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 down.
It's pretty much continuous to here.
Yep.
So there's 477, and a rough way to do that's 475, 473, 471. That's roughly a foot, so 472 feet.
Yeah. So
it's like roughly where we're like our width of the main zone.
That's like 20 feet.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what roughly. Could be 18, could be 21.
It's good. And then we go. Each one of these boxes is approximately 10 feet.
Yeah.
So we have another, let's say 8 feet, 18, 28.
And this is the layered sphalerite, the tannish stuff.
Yes.
So you're still in ore
mineralization.
Mineralization. There you go. That's what the term I was looking for.
Yeah. So like it becomes ore when we can mine it
at a profit.
Yeah. Here is we just kind of describe it as mineralization. So we've got widespread mineralization to here.
To almost 500 feet.
Yeah, exactly.
Thick. Depth.
Yeah, so from, what was it,
452.
Yeah, so we essentially have 50 feet of like well mineralized.
Yeah.
Yeah, and within that we've got a high grade core. So that's great. We love that.
That's great.
That's great.
And this high grade core is what, 4, 5, 6 feet somewhere? It kind of depends.
Yeah, so like we can actually measure it. And this is something I'm gonna do, but it's essentially, here's my reference point, 467. I use an engineering tape because we work in tenths of a foot here. So here I'm at 467.7. I'm essentially, the min zone starts at 469.1. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll write a little note on there so I don't forget. 469.1. So we go from there, 469.1 to, now I'm going to measure back from this.
Oh, nice.
Subtraction, man. Subtraction's tough. So that would be 472. So we're 472.4.
Too many numbers for me to do that in my head.
472.4. So we've got 3.3 feet of solid metal.
Yeah.
And you know, you got a narrow vein, like a narrow mine system, like you can mine that all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is like in other holes, which I can show you, we've got, you know, 10 feet of this kind of stuff.
Wow.
So it's like,
really?
you know how it pinches and swells.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my mine, I mean, you guys have seen me work my mine. Back in my mine, it's 2 to 4 feet. I mean, that's totally mineable width.
Oh yeah.
If you can get down there.
Oh yeah. And like with, especially we know that there's going to be kind of some other metals that we're interested in, like in the rocks around it, right?
Yeah,
that are going to add value.
Yeah, so you might have like a 3 foot, 4 foot core,
yeah,
but you're going to be taking 10, 12, 15 feet.
Could be. Yeah. Based on my experience looking at that, you know, I've done grade control on mines where we're mining stuff that's worse than that.
It's as mineable ore.
In terms of taking ore. So yeah, so that's pretty exciting. So this is like a good hole for us. In the hierarchy, it's like somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So, you know, we'll get it logged, get it sampled, get it to the assay lab, and then we'll know what it's worth.
And you can get it mapped. You can identify this zone on your hole.
Yep.
And you can put, once you get assays, you can put those in there, and you got to get this 3D model of how this vein's working underground.
And then we can estimate how much quantity we have, how many tons.
Yeah.
We can figure out what it's worth, and then you use all that information to make a decision on whether or not you want to mine it, what else you need to do in order to justify mining it, all that kind of stuff. It's easy when you're drilling winners.
It's easy.
It's a little more difficult when you're scrambling to find something like this.
All right, guys, this might be the end of part 1. This might be a multiple part video series. Stay tuned for part 2. When you go over, check out the drills in the mine. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you on the next video. And if you guys are interested in learning more about what Dale does in Tamarack Geology, check out their website. I'll leave a link down below to it. They got a lot of cool stuff going on, a lot of cool projects. So if you need any geologic services, check them out. This is being run by Metal Source Mining, so I'll leave a link to their website down below. Go check them out. They are really cranking over here. This trip isn't like paid by Metal Source. I'm not being paid to be here. I don't own any stock in the company. I'm just here with my buddy Dale checking out the geology that's going on. So I'm not promoting them in any way, but if you guys are interested in what's going on, you want to sign up for their newsletter, see the press releases, learn about what the results of this core are over the last couple of weeks that they've been pulling up, and follow the project in general, you can check out their website, Metal Source, down below. I'll leave a link. Check it out and sign up if you're interested.